And Periscope now. Alrighty, hello Periscope. Hopefully this is working. We're just getting everything set up. So while you're waiting, invite your friends, invite your neighbors, invite everybody you know. It's going to be a good one tonight.
If you're in a restaurant, invite your waiter.
Absolutely.
I'm sure he wants a job change.
Well, everybody needs two incomes these days.
That's right. Learn something new. Okay.
Alrighty. So let me verify Periscope. Come on, Periscope. And YouTube. Come on.
While Kathleen's handling all the technical information here, we're going to be going live with our show this evening, where we'll be discussing subject matter expert interviews. Are you asking the right questions? And if you didn't catch last week's show, it was on brainstorming, how to tap into your creative sides. And if you want to catch that again, you can check it out on periscope.tv/the BA Zone or facebook.com/the BA Zone. Brainstorming for Halloween. My Halloween decorations, by the way, are still up. Only because I had to go out to dinner this evening and I'm all full of tartuffe. If you don't know what that is, you really should try it.
Okay, and on the subject of last week, we had giveaway of two books, Pencil Me In and The Back of the Napkin, and I thought it was going to end last night, but it's not going to end until tonight. So you have until just before midnight Pacific time if you still want to get in on it, and if you want to get the details, you got to go back and look at the last show.
Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of a bonus. I guess that makes up for the fact that it took them like all day to release the links for the giveaways.
Oh, no one works on our time schedule. Don't you know that by now?
No, that's true. Welcome. No more Say One. You are over on Periscope, which means Periscope is working, which is great news. Thank you so much for that. We'll be getting started in a minute. I'll let Marianne vamp here while I'm getting the last pieces in place.
Yes, I'm going to try to keep my eyes open, but as I was saying, I was out to dinner this evening and for a birthday, not my birthday, but a fantastic little restaurant, and I'm hoping I can stay awake because I've had so much tartuffe. Does anybody know what tartuffe is? If you do, send us a comment, and if you don't, I'll let you know in a few minutes what it is. You know, on the East Coast, Northeast Jersey for sure, that's definitely a staple dessert. So tartuffe, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. But yeah, so hopefully I don't fall asleep. We didn't have coffee on top of that tartuffe, so it just might be a possibility that, you know, if you hear anything loud, it could be me. So just sort of scream and I'll snap my head back or something and get going. Oh, we had a great time last week on our show last week on brainstorming, you know, tapping into your creative side. And you can catch those out on YouTube. I believe it's YouTube.
Not YouTube. YouTube's broken. But on Facebook and Periscope. We're working on Periscope. YouTube.
That's right. That's right. Get that from you. See, I'm just all swollen up on sugar.
I wish I was.
Good Lord.
That sounds lovely.
It does sound lovely. It was lovely. It was a 2-hour, you know, it's an affair. Dinner is an affair. And by the time you get up, your butt is numb and everything else is just sort of full. But we had a great time. Hope everybody had a great weekend this weekend. This is how their week going this week. Did we do a trivia? I don't think we did a trivia last week. I didn't think we had a chance to do trivia.
No, remember last week everything crashed in a truly spectacular. We got almost all the way through pre-show, and then it went boom.
Oh.
Yes, but hang on, I can pull one up.
Actually, I have it right here.
You have one?
I have it right. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so this is our trivia, or this week's trivia question, brought to you by Tinker and Murphy. Those are our two little pups. Tinker, by the way, has not adjusted to the daylight savings time, and his wake up time now is 5 in the morning, and it's just dogs don't get daylight savings time. I don't know why, but that's been
Murphy
a
rolls with it. He doesn't get up until after I get up, whatever time that is.
Yeah, Katie used to be that way, but yeah, Tinker, he's a man unto himself. So he wants up, he wants up. So I'm out there in my pajamas at 5 o'clock in the morning with the joggers scaring me half to death. It's fabulous.
Waving to the neighbors.
Waving to the neighbors. Hopefully I have something decent on, it's just so much fun. But anyway, it's time for this week's trivia question brought to you by Tinker and Murphy. This week's question is, what is or was a puffing billy? Think about it, and we'll get back to you in a bit with the answer. I can tell you it's not my uncle, although he puffed quite a bit, but I think it might have been some cardiac issues or just maybe, not exactly sure. But it's not my Uncle Billy. Not my Uncle Billy. But what is or was a puffing billy? That's the trivia question, but I'm pumped for this week. Yeah, let me see how many minutes do we have.
Other than YouTube, everything seems to be behaving. I'm afraid to say it.
Great.
I don't know why my keyboard's so loud, but we'll just have to deal with that.
Last week on our show, I think you had said, Kathleen, that we had some visitors from different countries, which was fantastic.
Yes. We were very happy about that.
We're very happy, and if you come back this week, we want to wish a welcome to all of our fans out in the British Isles, and also in Thailand, India, and the Philippines, not to mention, the United States. Welcome, everybody. Happy to have you.
Yeah, so it looks like No More Say One is troopering along with us on Periscope. Thank you for that. And it looks like Amy has shown up over on Facebook.
Hey, Amy. Welcome.
So, evidently, we're live.
Oh,
I'm always mildly shocked when it works.
I'm so glad I got rid of that spinach in my teeth. We're alive.
You're going with vodka or water?
No, but it's very funny because I've been trying to adjust my camera here to get a good angle so that I'm not looking up or down or hiding my waddle, whatever. And the best thing that I found to put my computer up on is actually a box that my gray goose came in.
Hey, there you go.
Not
inspiration.
To mention, but it is a perfect size box to put that on.
All right.
Great.
The other things are working. Yes, the other things are working too. Yes.
Hello.
Got about 6 minutes.
It's the Tuesday tango.
So today definitely felt like it should have been Friday.
Oh, one of those days. It's kind of soggy outside. Didn't expect that.
Oh yeah, it's miserable. We had our usual flooding in the parking lot. I was very happy about that. Not. Amy wants to see the pups again. We can accommodate that. There we go. Mr. Murphy got groomed yesterday. So he's all good looking. I'm trying to get a good picture that I can swap out. He likes his spa day. I don't get a spa day. He gets one.
My dog has me trained so well, little Tinker. 10 o'clock, he gets some animal crackers. Then he gets them again at 3, then again at 7, and he knows too, and he will not leave me alone.
That was Bailey. I always wanted to find the little clock or watch that she had hidden away.
Yeah. Even going down the parkway, it's really interesting when you're going down the road and we have toll roads, and years ago they had more of them and they've removed some of them. But, the dogs instinctively know that there should be a toll booth when the window goes down and they get some air. And when that toll booth isn't there, they're still in that window. I'm like, they have some serious internal clockage going on. You know, it's like they know
clocks. See, my boy, not so good with this stuff.
No. Yes.
He's special. I love him, but not a whole lot going on upstairs.
Aw. Maybe he just
Amy,
chooses to.
One of these days, Amy, we have to chat because I still can't get the sound out of my headset and it's driving me crazy. I've tried everything. I'm sure I'm missing something really obvious, but we'll have to deal with that later.
It's a behind-the-scenes view of issues, technical issues.
Amy wants to know what Tink is short for.
It is short for Tinker, and he is our rescue pup. We rescued him at 10. He is now 12 years old. And he was on the brink of not being here when we rescued him, so now he's a healthy little 10-pounder, which is healthy for him. He had gone down to 6 pounds, so he's kind of an old guy, and his owner had, gotten Alzheimer's and had given them, there were 2 of them actually, and one passed, his brother passed. And we've had little Tinker now for 2 years, and he is cute as a button, really.
I didn't know he had a brother.
He did have a brother, yeah. But I think the stress of losing, their original owner was too much for them. So, it's got to be really hard. They have no clue. Can't talk, can't tell you what's going on. So, but he's great now. Just love and attention. That's all they really need.
He's king of his castle.
He is king of it. It's just, it's got us all under his little paw.
Yeah, he's adorable.
He's upstairs now, lounging a bed.
Well, sure, he wasn't happy because you guys were out.
No, he was not happy. Well, he had company. We always have, when he gets stressed out, he eats anything that he can find. So if it's, a paper bag, and he will find it. We come home and a lot of times, like I said, I don't know if I had said this before, but we had come home one time and I get magazines on writing, and I came home and he had eaten literally, and for a little dog, it must have been like 5 pages of my Writer's Digest. And then over the next couple of days, just sort of pooped out chapter by chapter. It was just terrifying for me. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to this poor little dog? But he's fine. He's part Billy Goat. But if you're just joining us, welcome to
on that note.
Ad-lib pre-show here at the BA Zone Live. But we just have a few minutes more before we will be talking about subject matter expert interviews. Are you asking the right questions? And it is part of an elicitation and requirements gathering sort of series that we're doing. And if you didn't catch last week's technique, it was on brainstorming how to tap into your creative side. And be sure to check that out on periscope.tv/the BA Zone or facebook.com, the BA Zone. And welcome to everyone who is joining this week's show. We're happy to have you.
I didn't know they still published the Writer's Digest.
Sorry?
I didn't know Writer's Digest was still being published.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's still pretty big. Still pretty big.
So I'm seeing folks on Periscope and Facebook. If you are new to us, please feel free to say hi, say new. We're very welcoming here. We like to know everybody. So let us know where you're from.
Yeah, it's sort of a casual party atmosphere. Woo!
You should get a map, put the pins in with everybody who visits.
Yes. My dog would eat them.
Well, I guess actually that's Google Analytics. It kind of tells us that too. Alrighty, so less than 2 minutes, so we're good. So you want to give them the answer to or you want to say the trivia question again?
Sure. Let me just make sure I have that right. So the trivia question for this week, brought to you by Tinker and Murphy, is what is/was a puffing billy? Okay, the answer, are you ready for it? I know you're waiting with anticipation. I can feel it. It is the name. The Puffing Billy was the steam train. The steam train. A little bit of history here for you on the BA zone.
You never know what you get.
You never know what you get. You never know what's going to happen.
Neither do we.
Either do we. That's right.
What about the dessert? Did you explain that?
The tartufo. For those of you who don't know
online
what a tartufo is, it is a dessert, by the way, fabulous dessert, where they take a ball of ice cream, and the traditional version is chocolate and vanilla ice cream, and in the middle of that ball is some chopped nuts and half of a maraschino cherry, and they take that entire ball and they dip it in dark chocolate and freeze the whole thing, and either slice it in corners or nice slices, and then they put whipped cream over it. Mine happen to have whipped cream and fresh raspberries over it. And someone else at the table had a pistachio tartufa, non-traditional, but also freaking delicious. So
it sounds awful. I would have eaten it for you. Shouldn't have suffered that way.
No, it's just it's so great, and it's a slimming product, really.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we are officially started. So, welcome everybody to the BA Zone Live. Thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or just want to say hi, throw it all in the comments. Or you can also just do hearts or thumbs up or whatever you like. Just let us know that you're out there. It's more fun if we have somebody to interact with, although we are highly entertaining on our own. Today, we're going to talk about subject matter experts. Are you asking the right questions? Is there anything we need to cover before we start?
You may want to speak about the free giveaways again. I know you talked about it in the live show, if anyone's just joined for the live show.
Okay. So if you caught us last week, or even if you didn't, it turns out that the giveaways that we started last week, which we thought were going to end yesterday, actually is going to end today. Tonight, I think it said just before midnight Pacific time. So there's two. One is for this book, Pencil Me In, and the other is for Back of the Napkin. So if you want to get in on that, you have to move quickly. And just after we're done here, go check out last week's show, and all the information is there.
And many of our best ideas came from the back of a napkin.
This is true, including this idea.
Here we go. Okay. And don't forget to please share this session or invite anyone you think would be interested in the information that we're going to be talking about tonight. And before we kick things off, let's, as usual, introduce ourselves. I'm Mary Ann Morrison.
And I am Kathleen Sinnott. And together, we are the BA Zone.
Woo-hoo! We created the BA Zone to help everyone who creates and maintains business and technical requirements. And whatever your business analysis questions are, we can help you get to where you need to be. So, okay, I think we're ready to let's get started.
Okay.
With subject matter expert interviews. Are you asking the right questions? So first of all, we should start off by giving you the definition of what an interview is. In general, it is a meeting of one or more people for the purpose of asking questions and exchanging and documenting this information. So when we talk about interviews, this is not a job interview, but if you keep watching the BA Zone live, it will lead you to a job interview, and a really good job, but it is not that kind of interview. So this technique of interviewing, it could be subject matter experts, users, stakeholders, customers, designers, developers. It is the most common approach used in gathering and listening requirements, and it's the go-to tool for any business analyst. When we talk about when to use interviews, you could use it for a variety of reasons, but we specifically look at when you're creating a product or a process or an application initiatives, or if you are documenting an existing product or process or application, you need to add or update a feature or change a process. So, in that case, if you're looking to streamline a process or improve the usability of an application or improve data capture, you're going to want to use interviews to add or update these new type of features. You can use interviews when you're migrating or merging existing products, processes, or features of an application, et cetera, into one application or one process. And it's usually you're looking at all these different products and combining them to get the best in breed, meaning, get the best out of each different application you pull in. And let's face it, the entire industry, any industry or any business you're in today, they are looking to merge and through acquisitions or merge their own products into suites of their own. And it's happening everywhere. So interviews are really important when it comes to migrating or merging products or processes. Also, another big trend is transitioning from an in-house approach or a product to an external licensed or a purchased approach product or vice versa. Not that we're huge fans of, licensed products per se. It sort of depends, I guess, on the size of, your application or your suite of applications, whether that approach works for you or not. But there's a lot of that going on where folks are, if they have in-house stuff, they can't afford any longer to develop that. And they're looking for easier approaches through licensed products, which is not always easier. But it's sort of a groupthink to save money happening everywhere also. And interviews are great to get that type of information. Reasons why you should use interviews. Sort of what happens when you interview people across an organization. You get a bunch of folks in a room to do an interview. You're going to get a more holistic approach by engaging multiple roles, viewpoints, experiences, and ideas. And that slide you're seeing is the BA rules of engagements. Did you skip one, Kathleen? Why should you use interviews? Yep. Oh, there you go. And pretty soon I'm going to be able to tap through these, so we don't have Kathleen trying to figure out where I am half the time. But again, interviews are great for providing that holistic approach, getting everyone's opinions, ideas, experiences, and it sort of gives everybody a chance to get that stuff out. It identifies pain points that happen along the way while people are trying to get their job done. It'll let you know what their preferences are, and it'll also identify any gaps in scope if you're already creating enhancements or a new project. You'll be able to get a lot of information from people and find out what's missing. They're also really handy to gauge participants' motivation towards the project or product. If you're really looking at somebody and paying attention to their body language, you can sort of tell whether they are on board or not. And yes, no, maybe, or have they been ignored completely in processes before? That comes across pretty strong too when you start interviewing folks. It'll help you reduce conflicts, and it promotes a team building through everyone using a common goal. Everyone's sort of heading in the same direction once you get them all on board and on the same page. And it goes a long way to facilitate buy-in later and setting expectations by promoting the user participation. So when everybody's focused on the same thing, everybody's participating, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to roll that new system or process out because everybody's had input into it. So those are just some of the reasons why you should use interviews. When we're actually going to participate in the interview process before we get to the steps, there are some business analyst rules of engagement that you want to follow. The first one, and one of the biggest one, is to come prepared. Whenever we're talking interviews, whether we're talking surveys or brainstorming, there's a lot of prep work that goes in to any of these techniques. And the main reason we do that is so that we don't go into one of these into an interview session or another type of technique cold. You don't want to go in cold. You don't want to waste people's time. You want to be able to go in there with information to plan to discuss or confirm or update the baseline information that you've acquired by doing a business analyst job, which is looking at existing documentation if it does exist, doing some surveys, shadowing, brainstorming. You want to do a lot of prep work before you get these people into a room. Their time is very valuable. So you have to have a list of questions. You have to be prepared. It is, probably a good, I'd say maybe, I don't know what you'd say, Kath, maybe 75, 80% of the job is being prepared and doing a lot of legwork to make it the facilitation of these techniques easier on everyone. And it's actually more fun when you're prepared. You're not scrambling and a nervous wreck. Another rule of engagement, actively listen. A lot of people you think are listening to you, but they're sort of just hearing. They're not really listening. You really want to focus all of your attention, make eye contact, smile, pay attention to their body language and their tone. It makes people feel like they're important. It makes them feel like you're concerned, which you are, for what's happening and how they're the pain points in their job. So you really want to pay attention and be in the moment and actively listen. Building relationships. You want to talk to people. You don't want to talk at them. So what do I mean by that? It's sort of like leave your ego at the door. Everybody can use 25-cent words. We call them the 25 or 50-cent words. But if you're on the tech side of the house, if you're, in other words, a business analyst that maybe comes from an IT background, which both Kathleen and I have, you don't want to use a lot of tech talk that, maybe if you're working with a clinical application, they're not going to follow. So everybody knows everybody's an expert in their own area, but you don't need to talk down to someone or throw a lot of that around, to make yourself feel important. So sort of leave the ego at the door and really strive to build those relationships by really talking and actively listening to folks. In life, anywhere, manners matter. So you really want to always be polite. You want to be humble. You want to be kind. There is no point coming in with an attitude because it's going to get you absolutely nowhere. So really, it's just the simple things, right? Everything mama told you. So that's what you want to apply even in the business world. And you want to engage everyone. You don't want no interviewee left behind, right? So you want to, if someone's very shy, you just find a way of directing and sort of drawing those folks out. But make sure everyone gets heard and everyone has a seat at the table. And those are sort of the high level, BA rules of engagement for any process. And they're sort of good rules for life as well. So let's talk about the interview step. As we said before, be prepared. Research. Can't stress that enough. Don't waste everyone's time asking questions that might be answered somewhere else in documentation, if that documentation exists. You want to define the focus and intent of the interview, and you want to share that with the interviewees. And, depending on the project, what phase you're in, the types of information you need, that's sort of going to define the focus of the interview. And you want to clearly state what that focus is. So, for example, are you outlining a work or a task flow? Are you creating a new feature, automating a manual process? That's sort of going to be the focus. So pick one of those things, and really set your intentions. And it could be multiple steps within that intention, and you're going to break it down that into workable units and estimate the time needed for that. So don't go in and say, well, we're just sort of going to talk about, I don't know, maybe just thinking up it. And it might be a brainstorming session to think of a new product, but that would be brainstorming. But when you get down to the interview level, clearly define some focus or intention and make sure that it's small enough that you can get to it in the time frame that you've set for yourself. And create a list of conversation points. I don't really say questions because I really don't want you reading from a scripted set of questions. I mean, that's really not what an interview should be. It should be you have these conversation points, and as you're going through the conversation points, you have a list of questions where you can spur the interviewee on, or engage them. But you don't want it to just be, I have question number 1, followed by question number 2, because you'll lose them pretty quickly that way. But you do have to have a reference point of what to discuss and what to talk about, and the information that you need to collect. But do it in more of a conversational sort of way, as opposed to going through a list of questions. You want to select the type of interview. Are you going to do a one-on-one, which means I'm the interviewer and one person is the interviewee? Or do you want to do it as a group interview? And then you invite the participants. I can tell you that if you're starting a project or starting to collect a new feature, the way I'd like to do it is, especially if you're new to a business analyst job or if you're new to the company, you might want to start with some one-on-one interviews. People will give you information in private that they may not give you in a group setting. And that sort of helps to set a baseline to understand people's motivations, et cetera. So we sort of recommend that you start with a one-on-one. And, it's up to you, but then you can move into the group. You can certainly start with a group. There's no problem with it. But as I said, it does give you some nice background information if you start with a one-on-one. Also, being prepared means you should use a template to quickly capture interview notes. When you're interviewing people, there are things that are going to come up that are sort of out of what your scope originally was for the interview. You may hear business rules. You may hear information about a particular a terminology that you might not understand. So there's different things you want to note. And if you have a template or some little key symbols or however you take short notes, we have a particular way of doing it at the BA Zone, but you want to be able to quickly capture those notes so you continue to make eye contact and, and your head's just not down tapping away on a computer screen, because you want that feedback and you want that personal feel to it. See, what else can we talk about with that? If you're breaking down, if you're setting up your interview, what your agenda is going to be, for example, and you do have, let's take, for example, you're going through an entire work process and you want to break that down. So a good example of breaking it down into workable units would be if, say, a patient goes into a hospital. There's a lot of things that happens when they go into that hospital. For example, if you're breaking something down into a workable unit of a person going into a hospital, it may be, okay, you have intake. Then you have insurance verification. Patient gets tests, has procedures, they get a diagnosis, they get treatment, and then potentially they're discharged. So those are all sort of subunits of a person being admitted into a hospital, right? You could actually take a sub-process then and break it down even further for your agenda. So within your interview or your questions. So for example, if you're looking at the first piece, the intake, what's on the intake? It could be demographic information, primary, secondary insurance information, medical history. So there's a way of breaking it all down so that you can usable chunks that you don't kill someone during the interview by going soup to nuts. So you want to measure everything out with that time frame and plan accordingly. So be prepared. Number one, be prepared. Know what you're going in to take care of.
And a lot of people think you can be over-prepared. And I find that that's not possible. You really always want to be more prepared than you think you need to be. And you always want to have a plan A, B, and C, because you're going to have to adjust midstream a lot of the time. As people are giving you information or the way they're reacting to you, you may have to adjust your approach. So you want to be super, super prepared, because sometimes you only get one shot with certain people that you're interviewing. So you want to make sure you get the very most quantity out of there, quality and quantity. But always make sure that you've got all the information you could ever possibly need, plus a little extra.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. You can never be over prepared. And, you know, Kathleen and I had talked about this too, that there's a lot of information in addition to these interview techniques that we're going through. We're sort of giving you the broad and basic today. But there are different levels, as Kathleen said. You may get one shot with a certain level of folks, and you're going to have different question sets for different types of people and different behavior modifications that you're going to have to make. Okay, so step number 2 in interviewing subject matter experts or anyone else is to set expectations. Setting expectations that not a lot of people do. And I'm talking, they don't set expectations with clients, with customers, with internal customers. It's sort of a big problem today, but setting expectations, and it's all about communication, right? But setting expectations saves you a lot of heartache at the end. You know, people are calmer, just set expectations. So what you want to do for the interview is provide, you know, a short overview of the project, the focus of the interview, and the importance of their involvement. So you really want to stress, look, they're taking time out of their day, and nobody has enough time in their day to begin with. And they're taking time out of their day to give you this information, so make sure they feel appreciated. Let them know that they're going to expect more than one of these interviews, because really that whole process is an iterative approach. You're not going to get all the information that you need. You're going to be going over it in your head. You're going to be analyzing it. You're going to come back with different approaches and answers. So they should expect more than one interview, and hopefully you can get that time from them. Make sure you review your role as the facilitator of the interview or the interviewer. You know, that you're going to be asking the questions, and you're going to, you know, try to draw them out, and you're going to be documenting this information, plus a few other steps too. Make sure you explain the concept of the parking lot. If you don't know what the parking lot is, it's basically when you're having a conversation or you're doing an interview and you're focused on a particular agenda item or interview question, and someone sort of comes up with a different idea that's really not in focus or not related or directly related to the interview. It may be a great idea, a fantastic idea, but you really need to stick to your agenda to get what you need. So, but you don't want that person to feel like their idea doesn't matter or they're not being heard. So literally, we just put a sort of a white sticky, you know, a flip page up on the wall, label it parking lot, and you know, just bullet point that idea and who it came from, and make sure that you let them know that you're going to discuss it in a future session. You know, a lot of good ideas are flying around during interviews, and you don't want to lose any of that. So that's the concept of the parking lot. Comes in very handy, and especially for those folks that like to come up with a lot of ideas and chat and sort of take over the conversation. It sort of quickly gets the point across, and then you can move on. Let them know that time will be provided at the very end of the interview to discuss any additional topics and actions for the next session, if there are any, and who's going to be doing those actions. By additional topics, I mean that there may be things that are very important to the specific focus or intent of the interview that was completely missed by you as the BA or by everyone. And it's just maybe because we have someone in the group interview that is maybe a different role or in a different process that actually whatever we're doing impacts them. So you just need a little time at the end to catch anything. Is there anything we're missing type of thing? And that's the additional topics. Let them know that there'll be time at the end for that. And that you, as the BA, will provide the interview notes or minutes, as we call them, that they'll be captured and distributed to everyone to review. And that's setting expectations. If we move on to step 3, we start getting into questions. Now, we could have went a lot of ways with questions. There are different types of questions you can ask for different levels within an organization or different roles. But these are sort of the generic sort of baseline questions. And these are designed to get everyone on the same page or thinking the same way. A lot of times people in different roles are siloed in their world. There's not a lot of communication, especially in a big organization. I find that communication is one of the, anytime you take surveys, corporate surveys, it comes up to the top all the time. Lack of communication, it's a big issue. So a lot of people are working in their own world until you get them all in a room. And then you start realizing this person didn't know this was going on. This person didn't know this product was rolling out, or this new client has been engaged. So this sort of gives you, these baseline questions sort of just are designed to get everybody, making sure everybody's thinking the same way. So, and they're pretty generic. It's sort of, what are the general goals of the business and the organization? You would be surprised how often people are not on the same page in an organization from, department or sector to sector. What services or products do they provide? Some of this information is also going to be confirming or updating what you already know when you gathered and you did all the business analysis and the brain, the surveys. You're just sort of confirming this information. We found in the past that there are products out there that we didn't even know we had. It's not master listed anywhere, or we've acquired a new client and there's all of a sudden there's new products. So you just want to go over all those products and services. Who's going to provide those, or who does provide those services and products? This is where we start getting into roles and responsibilities. You have to list that in your requirements document, and this is a good opportunity to either get that information or confirm or update it. How do they provide or perform their service or product? So what are the steps or the procedures in performing that? What's their task flow, their workflow? It could be high level at this point, just so that everybody understands that this is the main flow. And when and how often do they provide the service or product? This goes around, we're starting to get into measurements and timing when we start talking about that stuff. And where do they perform it? Is it on-site, off-site? It's pretty important. Do they need technology to support off-site? Is it mobile applications they might need? Where do they perform their job? Is it in the middle of a hospital? They have to walk around with one of those little rolly carts with the computers on it. It's pretty important to find out where the products and the services take place so that you can design or suggest technology to support that. What are the rules and measurements? Are there any regulations, policies? And we've talked about this in the past too. Any targets that have to be hit? And who else do they interact with? Are there providers, departments, internal, external? It just gives everybody a nice baseline of the entire organization. And that's what these questions are designed to do. There are, you can come up with a million different types of questions, but this sort of is a nice sort of overview, and it gets everybody talking about the same type of thing before you start doing dive, which is step 4. Now, the deeper dive is what I like to call, we start getting into the love-hate questions. What do they love about an application or process? What do they hate about it? We like to start out by saying, what is it that they like about the current product or process? And I mainly do that before they start spinning into negativity, which ultimately happens in any of these type of interviews. So, what is it that they like about the current product, process, or application, and why? Sometimes people just like it because they're comfortable with it. Even the people who complain about it, we have found that when you move to something new, they kind of miss what they used to complain about. And it's just sort of, familiarity type of thing. But we do start out with the positive, and then we work our way to the negative. And we ask them, what is the most critical Well, it's not really the negative. It's sort of the critical part of the product that cannot be changed and why. And, once you start going deeper into these questions, sometimes what cannot be changed, the why reasons could be like, well, we've always done it that way. We get that a lot. And it's like, okay, so they need someone to help them think out of the box. So it may be a critical part or a path that they actually do need. And then again, it may not be. What are their pain points? Again, we go back to the pain points. And this is where the complaining starts to go in. Some people don't know what they want, but they sure as heck know what they don't want. And they're pretty vocal about that. And they'll give you a lot of information about that. And what, if anything, had been done in the past to relieve those pain points? And why do they think they were not successful? Because if they still have pain, there's an issue there. Sometimes pain points, just going to that a little bit further, they're going to be describing the problems they encounter in performing their work. And it could be problems with process or technology. Then it could be a picnic problem. And that's sort of a little acronym for, person in chair, not in computer. That's what we used to call a picnic problem. And, sometimes that picnic problem really isn't the person in the chair. It is probably that the system or the process is not intuitive enough. Sometimes maybe 2%, it really is the person in the chair. And that just means you have to address some training issues. But it's never the person. Always focus on the problem. But it was funny, years ago, they used to call it, support was always picnic. It's a picnic. And we would always argue what that actually meant. Okay, what other products or initiatives are in other areas do they feel might affect the service or product or process, either positively or negatively, and why? And here you're looking for dependencies between projects and systems that need to be analyzed and potentially addressed. But you need to know what those dependencies are. So that's sort of the love-hate questions of the deeper dive. And once we go from the love-hate questions, we sort of work on, okay, let's identify wants versus needs. People may want something because someone may have promised it to them in the past. Maybe a previous business analyst or a designer or a developer said, hey, we could do this, never came to fruition. And now they want it, they got to have it. Or maybe they saw it somewhere else in a different product. So they want it, but do they actually need it? Or do they think they need it to solve a particular problem? But what's the problem? Being the wants versus the needs. I need it. Why? Well, because, that's the way it's been, as we said before. Or, these type of questions help you identify those key factors. So, for example, you could ask him if they could, or if they could have or change anything, be it product, feature, process, whatever, what would it be? How would it make their job easier and why? And how would that change affect other areas? Because people don't often think what would happen downstream, and small changes can really have huge impacts. And we've seen that in the past. And if they could rank or change anything, what would it be? Right. If they could rank the features of the current product or process application, et cetera, from the most important to the least important in its ability or the level of impact to complete their jobs, what would that ranking be and why? Sometimes we handle that question in a survey question, but it's also very helpful to handle it in the interview as well. And the ranking goes a long way to deciding what are we going to work on first, what are we going to work on last, and depending on roles that you ask this to, you're going to get different levels of importance for different people, right? So it's something that you want to look into. What are the outside pressures, events, or circumstances that impact their workday? Are there time constraints? Are there system outage or sales events that occur? Are there complaining people on the phone if you're a service representative while you're also trying to do these other things? We have to look at all these outside pressures or events, because if we design a system, for example, and say to someone, you know, you have to go through or get this many sales calls in a day, you better know what the other constraints or issues they're having are before you start creating a technology-heavy response where they have to add in tons of information where they can't, it could be redundant information, where they can't actually get to those calls. So you need to know what's going on, you know, in the environment around them and what's going on a day-to-day basis. And what information do they need to complete their task? And where does that information come from? So that's sort of getting into the data. You know, do you really need this data? Or do you want it because somewhere down the road you may do research? You know, you don't want to do that to your users. If you're really going to use it, use it. If not, you know, table it until you actually do use it. And those are the 5 steps on the high level for subject matter expert interviews and asking the right questions. Additional tips for success: you want to generate conversations and interject specific questions. Don't read off the list.
Okay, we seem to have lost your audio, and I'm not sure why. Did you hit something by mistake? Or is just the universe fighting back? We couldn't get through one without a problem. Of course. Give me 1 second here. Let me see if I can get it. If not... Alrighty, because, you know, we can't have anything go easy. Okay, try again.
Lips.
Okay, I think you're back.
I'm back. Where did you lose me?
As we were transitioning from the previous slide into tips.
Okay. So those are the 5 general steps for conducting an interview, whether it be a one-on-one or a group interview. Tips for success. Hold on just 1 second.
And you're on again. Wait. Okay, there you go.
Okay, am I back?
You're back.
I'm in. I'm not. Okay, I feel like I've been singing too long and I'm losing my voice, but it's not true. I'm right here. Okay, one more time. You want to generate conversations. Don't read off a question list. Interject those specific questions so you can get the information you need, but really make this more of a conversation where everyone's invited in. This, you know, doing a good interview is like throwing a really good party. You know, pay attention and really make contact with people. Ask for examples in order to understand a concept or a problem. If you don't understand something, you're not going to be able to design something. So a good way of doing that is, you know, could you give me an example of that specifically? Because sometimes you'll get more out of it by doing that. Dig deeper. Make sure that you're addressing the problem and not just the symptom. A pain point is a symptom, but what is the problem that's causing the symptom? And Dr. Morrison has a lot of feel-good tips about that, but we'll talk about that later. Anyway, capture ideas, but don't design solutions. Everybody will have a solution. You can put that idea up in the parking lot. That's great. But capture the ideas at this point in the interview and don't try to design a solution. And those are my tips for success, our tips, the BA Zone's tips for success for interviews. Other than that, have a party, have fun, make it entertaining, because God knows it can be really dull and boring interviewing. So, and it's 90% of your job. So make sure you have a good time with it. And that's it for today's topic. Kathleen, do you have anything to add? Have you lost audio?
Well, you're going to get feedback if I talk because I lost my headset.
Oh, she's lost her head. The dog has taken the headset. Okay, I think, okay. So don't forget, you can leave us questions or feedback in the comments section here on Facebook. You can tweet or DM us on Twitter at the BA Zone, or you can go to our website, thebazone.com, and use our comment form. And remember to like us and subscribe to us in all the other places. If you want a little more information on interviews, you can go to thebazone.com and check out our blog, Stakeholder Analysis and the Vampires Among Us, Part 1 and Part 2. That'll give you some more information on interviewing techniques. It is on stakeholders, ergo the Vampires Among Us, but it has some additional information there for you. And I guess that's about it. That wraps up our show. We'll be back next Tuesday, and we hope you'll all be able to join us then. And please remember to tag any of your friends, family, or coworkers, strangers on the train, anyone who will find this content helpful. And as always, we're here to help you own the zone of business analysis. And thanks for coming by, and see you next time on the BA Zone Live. Take it away, Kathleen.